How's it going, everybody? Jody in here, and I'm back for another episode in my Stormworks series. Today we're going to be talking about trains. And I know you know that I know trains in Stormworks, and I've played with trains, and I've built trains, and trains are a thing. So, so, um, my first actual decent train. This was my first actual decent train, and it was a diesel, engine. And you can see back here, it's got two diesel generators, turbines, and all the fun pickings going back to generators and whatnot. And for the most part, it worked. This train worked. It got up to a decent speed, and it got up to it did its thing. The one problem with it was it went through so much fuel. It went through fuel so fast that it couldn't even make it to the Arctic on a tank of fuel. And the fuel tank was the fuel tank down here. And it couldn't make it. It couldn't make it to the Arctic with the fuel. There's even some dumpsters so you can refill it. I put fill on both sides so you can refill the tank. But still, I could not make it to. And this has an automatic system, so the generator only kicks on when you need it, when you need to charge a battery. But like I said, it couldn't even make it to the pole. Those generators at the back would, of course, fill the batteries here. There's two large batteries. I kind of zoom in and kind of see them. There's two large batteries here in the engine, and then of course the motor on the front here, which kind of looks like the front of a train. The medium, is that a medium? That's a large. That large motor was the drive unit that drove the wheels. And it did all right. It got me around the islands, and I was able to fill up here and there. And of course, I got the readings on the front for everything from the speed or the RPM of the engine and the fuel levels and all that stuff displayed on the screen there. And of course, this was when I was starting to play around with radio controlling. So you can see my antenna here, and my antenna actually, here's the nice console here for driving the train, and the antenna would actually communicate with a caboose, and that caboose would then be able to control the train, so you could actually control the engine from the caboose. For back in long trains into or long consts, they call them constants. So back in long constants into a train yard or something, you didn't have to do it from the front; you could do it from the back in the caboose. So that was my first decent train. Was this guy, and my decent electric train. I should say my first decent electric train, because I have made actual diesel trains, and I've made trains that run on motors, and I even made a diesel train that would get me to the Arctic in like 2 seconds. It's not on. I don't think it's on here on this list of trains. No, it's not. I just searched for the word train. But anyways, then I started getting into nuclear. Oh wait, no. Here's another one. Here's another one that I had a diesel engine, or the two diesel engines at the back that ran into generators. The generators filled the battery down here, and the battery ran the motors for the wheels. And of course, on this one, I had a much bigger tank. This is the fuel tank on this one. It's massive. And this one would get me to the Arctic. This one would actually get me to the Arctic, but it didn't have any power. It was very underpowered. I'm not talking power as in electricity. It had plenty of electricity. I'm talking, this is the only motor, because I had to conserve I had to conserve what I was charging. Like I couldn't keep charging the batteries constantly. I had to conserve power, so I just went with this one little motor to run this one drive wheel. The front drive wheel has no motor; it's dead. So that one little motor running this one little drive wheel, that's all I had to pull the train. That's it. So this thing got up to maybe, if you add another car on the back of it, I think I got it up to 5 to 7, something like that, meters per second, so, or whatever their unit of speed is. I got it up to like 5 or 7 or something like that. It was almost faster to take a boat. Honestly, it was almost faster to take a boat up to the north. But yeah, it was kind of, it got me there. It got me there. But that's about all it could do, was get me there. I could bring one container on this. I could bring one container, and then I would attach a container trolley to the back to bring a couple more. But that was the limit of what it could do. That's actually what I built this for. This cargo train trailer. That was built to go with that. That's why they have similar designs. So then this guy wasn't really generating, or wasn't really getting me there. So then I tried actually making a nuclear train. This was my first attempt making a nuclear train engine, and it didn't work either. Really didn't. I tried to streamline it because I didn't know if wind or anything was a problem. So I streamlined it as much as I could, given how bulky it is. But yeah, the nuclear part of it basically starts here. It basically starts here, the nuclear end of it. As soon as you walk through this door, you're in the reactor, and the reactor takes up the rest of the damn engine, like all the way to the back. So there wasn't a whole hell of a lot of walking room, and I tried my best to maximize the space, but there was only so much I could do. So that's what I even flipped. I even flipped my reactor. I flipped it upside down and put it on its head so it would fit over top of the boiler. But yeah, so this is this nuclear train. The one thing I was messing around with at this time was doors, which you kind of got to see the door there a little bit. But when you press the button, it comes out, and it's a ramp. So you can walk into the train, and then you open the back here, and there's your reactor in all its glory, and then you control it from up here. Basically, it just had a reverse and a throttle, and that's it. Because this never left the test bed. I canceled this project before it ever left the test bed. Yeah, I do kind of like how the door goes, but it doesn't actually close. It's not an actually closed door. And if you were to go around a corner, fast, it would probably swing open. So yeah, that's my reactor train, or at least this reactor train. And I'm working my way up here. There's a reason I'm telling you these stories of failure, because from failures comes success. So this was my first reactor train, and it was a failure. So then I thought after this, I was like, well, what if I just put the reactor in a car? And that's what I did here. I put the nuclear reactor in a car, in a train car. And I said, okay, so now I can hook up any electric train to the front, and it'll get its power through the plug. And I think this is when I started using this specific design for my connectors. You saw the connectors before. Actually, no, because that last nuclear one I think had this connector too. But anyways, So this is kind of why I started doing this build, so I could transfer power between the trains. Uh, and so this reactor here was actually built. This reactor here was actually built to try to make this train useful, because that's why the connector's on the back here. Because what would happen with this train is this nuclear generator was not optimized at all, at all. You can see it still uses the old design that I had before. If you watch my new video on my new nuclear reactors, you'll notice that the new nuclear reactors output a hell of a lot more power than these old ones, than these old setups did. This was the maximum power that I thought you could get out of a nuclear reactor. It was like 1200. And this is a full nuclear reactor. This has got as many turbines as you could possibly get. This is 8 turbines running off of 1 steam boiler and 1 reactor. And that is, as far as I know, the most power you could get out of that at the time was what I was getting, which was 1200. Is pretty damn close to maxing out. Now, of course, if you've been watching my recent videos on power generation, you'll know that that's definitely not the maximum. We're up around 17 to 20,000 now, instead of just 1,200. Instead of 1,200, we're up around 17 to 20 for a reactor this big. So this is definitely, this could be useful if I adjusted the reactor and, you know, but nah, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make a new train that was actually useful. So take you back out, and so this was the caboose for one of the cargo trains. It was just a simple caboose. It had bedding, it had seats, and a little desk. So this was one of my cabooses, just for one of my trains, and of course at the front it had batteries, lots and lots of batteries, because it basically functioned as a portable battery bank, as well as a caboose, and it charged off the solar. So anyway, what train came after that? The shunt train, I think. This is when I started getting into glitching. I didn't glitch this one at first. This was not a glitch at first. This was it was powered off the plug. So this had a trailer on the back. So this would carry a power unit behind it. But then once I did the glitch trick, I was like, okay, well, I'll just throw a glitch in here and power it off a glitch. So that's when I got into glitch. I started moving away from trying to generate power, and I just said, okay, let's give myself unlimited power. And yeah, but nowadays I am trying to get back to, especially since generators are kind of useful again. I'm trying to get back to them, because before a lot of these tricks were learned with the new generators, and throttling the clutch and all that kind of stuff. Before that stuff was known, to me anyway, I had no way of producing that kind of power. I had no way of keeping an electric vehicle running. It would eventually just die out. So this was a little shunt car that I made to run off a trailer behind it, a battery powered trailer behind it, or I should say a generator trailer behind it, and then just shunt around stuff. So it was able to charge itself up, because before I had the glitch in here, I actually had a set of batteries, or a battery bank, and the battery bank was actually bigger than the glitch. The battery bank actually came back to about, I would say maybe here. So there was just, you could just barely squeeze through to get out. But yeah, the battery bank basically filled this whole side of the little shunt vehicle. That's why the door's offset and the cab's offset. because all that side was full of batteries. Um, but anyways, what you'd do is you'd bring the little shunt, you'd charge up the little shunt because you'd have your trailer attached to it, and then when you got to the spot where you needed to shunt, you would detach. The shunt would run off a battery, do its little shunting, and then come back and connect to the trailer, which would recharge it again. So it was kind of like a quick disconnect, go do something, and then come back and reconnect to get your battery refilled. And then when I discovered the glitch stuff, that's when I drew the glitch in here, and away it went. The flywheel glitch. But yeah, so that was a little shunt card, and that was the first time I had a vehicle when I put the glitch in. It was the first time I had a train that was actually could stay powered indefinitely. And then after that, I was like, oh well, if I can do that to that, then why can't I do that to this? Why can't I do that to this? So right now I have there's the one. So that same train engine I started with that had diesel, I took the diesel engine out and I put the glitch in and added the ability for it to provide drive power, so it drives as well as the front here driving. So this thing's became a lot more useful with that. But like I said, in recent times, like recently as in the past few months, I've been looking at getting away from using the glitch and getting back to using actual generators. So with that said, I bring you my latest design. This is this one I've been working on for well, about a day now. Um, I I was in it the other day and I fell asleep, and after doing some running around, I fell asleep, and then I woke up at like almost midnight, and yeah, basically my entire night was blown. So I was like, well, whatever. I'm gonna stay up for a little bit maybe and just work on something. And so this is what I made. I decided I was gonna make a nuclear train. I call it the Eclypse, and 100% nuclear. It has a smallish medium-sized reactor. I would call it a medium-sized reactor, but on the small side, because instead of having all 8 turbines, it only has 2. Instead of having eight steam turbines, which is the maximum, I have 2. I'm only running 2. And that is giving me an output of about, I would say, I believe it's 2,800, something like that. 2,800. So it's it's not up in the 17 to 20,000 range, but it's enough that it's not running on empty. It's not the motors aren't draining the train. So the train is completely powered by the reactor, and it doesn't, unlike my earlier trains, which had to stop and recharge. This one does not. This one stays at full power all the time. So it's going to be hard to show you the inside of this because I got everything crammed in there. But here you can see my reactors here. I have my reactor here at the front. I went with the cooling system. I shunted the cooling system to the front of the train. You can see those pink lines. Those are my coolant lines. And the reason I went with pink is because I in real life, I'm a mechanic for Toyota, and coolant with Toyota is pink. So I decided to go pink lines. just so in my head I would be like, oh, those are the coolant lines. So they come to the front where there's a radiator, and I'm going to go off on a tangent here just for a second. I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant. A little bit of rant. Yeah, rant. See? I submitted a bug report, and I called it a bug report. I submitted it to the Stormworks crew because their radiators have, like, I have ADHD which comes with some OCD. And when I look at these radiators, and I'm a mechanic, I actually do, I work on cars for a living. When I look at these radiators, it irks me. It's like nails on a chalkboard just looking at the radiator. And it's not the design. It's not the way it looks. It's the design of it. Now, if you go out into your car or you go out to your truck, let's say whatever's sitting in your driveway, you open the hood, you take a look at the radiator in there. The pipes do not come out of the front. They will not come out of the front. They will come out of the engine side of the radiator. The engine side also is the fan side. And if you're talking a truck, the fan might even be connected to the engine, so it'll be more like what can I use here? Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. So in a truck, pretend this is the engine here. Pretend the engine's here. This block is the engine, and you'll have your fan off the front of the engine, right? And so your fan will be off the front of the engine like that, and it'll be in a cowling, whatever, and then your radiator, right? Now, I don't know any car that has the radiator hoses coming out the front of the radiator because that's out your hood. That's out your grill. This is your grill. You're not going to have the hoses coming out of your grill. The way that hoses really are is you have a high hose on the back here. That's where your hot water goes in. And on the bottom, you have your cold water out. That is how they're designed. That is how radiators are designed. And the fact that I can actually put a pipe there tells me that that's not blocked in any way from them doing that. It's just lazy designing that they put them both on the other side. Like your radiator, this is how a radiator works. I mean, we're supposed to be building engineering things here. This game is supposed to cater to, or not cater to, but this game is supposed to tickle the fancy of actual engineers and actual builders, and at least that's the way I feel. But there's just so many things that are just slightly wrong. Don't replicate real world, and this is one of them. This is one of them. Like, why are the radiator pipes? I wouldn't even care if they. I wouldn't even, I wouldn't care if they did the radiator pipes off the back like that. I would not care at all. But put them on the right side of the damn radiator. They're on the fans suck through. The fans suck the air through. They don't. And you even have an arrow there showing that no, you don't, because that's that. But the fans suck the air through the radiator. That's what they're there for. They're there to suck it through. They don't blow it through. They suck it through. And your engine is on the back side of that. Because you're not gonna push hot air from your engine through the radiator. You're gonna suck the cold air through. And that's why your lines are on this side. Your lines are on this side because they have to come from the engine. Which, in this game, the lines come from the engine as well. So, if your hot engine's got to be on this side because you're sucking the air through, you're sucking cold air through, your engine's got to be on this side. Your pipes should be on this side. Why do you have them coming out of this side? That makes no flippin' sense whatsoever. That is the most broken logic I've ever seen. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's games that have much more broken logic than that. But still, like, oi! If I was to face this radiator the proper way, I would have pipes coming out like this, and then I'd have to like curve them back to get them to go actually inside. It's just, oh god. Anyway, /end rant. So anyway, This is the Eclypse. I named it the Eclypse just because I thought it sounded cool. It's when I looked at it, I was like, that was the name that just came to me. Uh, it kind of resembles when you look from the top a little bit of the Star Wars design there for the Eclypse. But anyway, so this is the Eclypse. It has three drive wheels at the back. The fronts are bogies. They have no power, no nothing. They're just there for moral support. But yeah, the three drive wheels on the back, and I did that because I discovered that additional wheels, if you the more axles you have, the more power you can actually put to the I was gonna say power to the road, but the more power you can put to the rails before you get slip. Um, Now there's a balancing act because the more wheels you add, the more engines you have to add, or the more motors you have to add to drive those wheels, because you're going to have a loss. You're gonna lose power. The more wheels you add, the more power is required to turn them. So there's a balance where you start to lose power by adding more wheels. But I kind of found a nice little balance here with this vehicle with the three wheels. And now, when I say three wheels, I mean three separate drive axles. Because you can also have wheels like this, which gives you three wheels. You can see there's three wheels. So why didn't I use this? Because it's only got one inlet. There's only one shaft inlet right there in the middle. That's the only power in to those drive wheels. So when you're actually looking at this wheel set, when I'm looking at this wheel set, what I see one drive wheel and two support wheels. That's what I see. You have one drive wheel in the center, you have two support wheels on the ends, which means that even though it's got three wheels, well, six wheels, but even though it's got three axles, I should say, even though it's got three axles, only one of them is driven, which means you're going to have slip because you're only driving one axle. You're not driving three axles like I'm doing here. These are three separate driven axles versus one driven axle with three wheels, and it takes up more space. So you have to be careful with the train wheels, because again, like I said, this one here also has three wheels. I think it has three wheels. Does it have three wheels? No, this has two wheels. But you see the difference here. It has two wheels, but visually none of them are driven. Visually, because it goes into the middle, and there's nothing really attached to the middle. So in my eyes, this is a dead axle. This it should be a dead axle, but for some reason, you know, it's also treated as one because it has one input. So this axle here, the way that Stormworks works is your drive axle is determined by how many inputs it has. So this has one input, even though it has two axles, it has one input, so it acts like it's got one wheel or one drive wheel. This one has, again, three wheels, but only one input. So I should say three axles, but only one input. So it acts as one wheel or one axle instead of three axles, and likewise, and so on and so forth. At this one here, one input, one axle, it acts as one axle. So what I did was I took the decent sized ones, which was, I believe, was it this one, train wheel assembly medium. Yeah, I took this one because this one has a base plate on it, and I liked the fact that it had a base plate on it. So I took this one and tripled it. One, two, three. So I have three drive axles running off of two motors. There's two motors there, and that gives me a really nice balance of power to traction. with the 3 drive wheels. If I were to make these front ones drive wheels, I would lose power. If I were to add another motor, I would have too much. So I have a 3-to-2 balance here, and it seems to be a very good balance. I had to work a little bit more on that, which I'll show you. But the 3-to-2 balance seems to be good. Seems to be decent. I don't. Where are we here? Switch out of that. I have them also geared. I have one gear there, and I have one gear. I have another one on there. I have one on each shaft. Where's the other one? Oh, the other one's right there, right above it. So I have one gear here. Because the 2 motors, I put the 2 motors back to back. So the one that's over here, I had to kind of loop the drive shaft around and have it come in. But I wanted to change their gear drive ratio while they were still separated. So that's what I did. I put 2 gearboxes basically in the same space. I got a gearbox there and a gearbox here. So this feeds up, that feeds around, and then they both feed back to the back this way to the rear drive. So there you can see. Gearbox there, and they both feed into this shaft, or this drive axle here that comes all the way back. With a clutch, there's a clutch right there too, hiding in there. You can see there's the clutch right there. So I can control the clutch, I can control the throttle, and I can control the gear ratio. So that's what helps me maximize the amount of power I can put to the tracks. Anyway, back to our reactor. So we have our reactor in here. Follow the reactor back to our boiler, which is, and this is going to be kind of hard to show because, like I said, this is kind of smeared in here. So here's our boiler back here. Our boiler gets the hot water on the red pipes from the reactor, and you can see a bunch of batteries crammed in here. That's for the reactor power. There's a reactor power pack here, made out of 4 small batteries. That powers the reactor only. The reactor systems. So the reactor, the pumps that are on the reactor, the radiator that cools the reactor, that's what those power. Those are completely separate from the train systems, which are like lights, the motors to actually drive the train, the clutch, the gearboxes, any displays that are in the cabin, any controls that are in the cabin, those are all separate from the reactor systems. So they have their own power system. They're completely separated. In the event the reactor batteries go dead, I can boost them from the side, or I can boost the reactor from the side. I can plug in an electric cable here, and basically provide power to the reactor systems, so I can get the reactor back online and charging. The train systems do not have an external hookup. Once they're dead, they're dead. The reactor can bring them back. So my only connection here is to bring the reactor back online if the reactor fails, or if the reactor ends up powering down, and the battery goes dead for some reason. Say if I leave it sitting on the track for like 2 hours or whatever, with the fans running, or actually I shouldn't even be able to do that. I don't know if I don't know actually if the reactor can kill itself. There's probably a way, and if there is, I'll find it. But I wanted to put that in just in case that event ever happened. So I added that charge port basically. So back here we got like I said, we had our boiler. Where's our boiler? Our boiler is right here. Behind our boiler, I was able to sneak a few microcontrollers. One is for adding up the generator power, the power being processed by the generators, and then I added an additional generator, so I had to put another adder in here, which I think is this one, the gray one. I needed a constant number for my clutches, my generator clutches, so that's what that is. This guy here, I forget what it is. What are you? No, not. I don't want that boiler or whatever. What are you? What are you? What are you? Greater than 90. Oh, that's to control the gearboxes for the generators. Which you'll see, I'm not using a 3-to-1. I'm actually using a 6-to-5 because I found when I used a 3-to-1, it slowed down the turbines too much. It slowed down because like I said, I've only got 2 turbines. I'm on this normal system, I would have 8 turbines, but I've only got 2 turbines, so I need to gear differently in order to get the maximum amount of power without slowing down the turbines, and that was the ratio I came up on, which still provides me with a decent amount of power to keep everything running, and to keep my batteries at a full charge while I'm zipping down the rails. But it doesn't slow down the turbines enough to kill them. So that's what that is. And then of course I have your typical speedometer, so you can measure your speed of the train. Behind that I have my 2 boilers. You can see there's one here, one here. You can kind of see their outlines. The outline of one right here, and then the outline of one right beside it. Those are fed water from these 2 little tanks. Well, I shouldn't say that. The 2 little tanks feed the boiler, but then the boiler feeds the rest of the system. So there isn't that much water in the system. In fact, if I look at my boiler, it's empty. See? My boiler is empty. The only water I have is these 2 little tanks here. And that's enough to make this system run on a closed loop. I'm on a closed loop, so there's no steam being released from this system. It's completely enclosed. But these little 2 tanks are enough to keep this system running at about 5 pounds of pressure. So not bad, not bad. That's all the water I need to carry. A lot of people will fill up their boiler, like max out their boiler. You don't need to do that. You can have your boiler empty and just provide it with enough water to keep it running. In fact, in the old days, if you filled up your boiler, you'd probably blow it up because the steam there'd be too much water. There'd be more water than you can use. So when you boil it off, the steam pressure would go through the roof. You'd be at like 40, 50, 60 in no time. And back then the boilers blew up when you got above 10. so so it was a bad time. It was a bad time for all. But I learned the trick is not to put any water in the boiler. Just supply these little tanks until you reach the right amount. Some of my reactors actually need a medium-sized tank here. Some of them, this one I can get away with 2 small ones. But that's actually how you adjust your steam pressure is with the water. Anyway, so past that, I have a couple of controllers here for valve control because I kind of want to get the water back up to these tanks. I don't want it to stay in the system when I shut down. So one of these is just an on-off, which controls the valve. So when the generators or when the reactor's turned on, the valve opens, and as soon as the reactors shut down, the valve closes. And this is the out valve for the tanks. So the tanks are on the end of the loop where the valve is. So then what happens is this guy here, this is my delayed off controller, and I have it set to 30 seconds. So what this guy does is it will maintain a signal. It'll maintain an on signal for 30 seconds after you turn it off. So I have it hooked up to the reactor, and it's powering the system pumps. So there's a pump out of the boiler. There's a return pump, which pumps into the it's kind of hard to see at the top here in this view, right here. It pumps into the condenser. So the return pump pumps into the condenser, and that's this one sitting on the outside. And then there's another pump tucked in here, which is the pump that pumps from the water tanks out into the boiler. So this is like the clearing pump. This is the pump from the steam, this is the steam pump, and this is the return through the condenser pump. So what happens is when you shut off the power, or the reactor, when you stop the reactor, shut it down, this valve here closes. This valve here, And it's hard. Like I said, I have to show you in shadow like this because it's hard to see it from the inside. If I go inside, well, well, there's the valve. There's the valve there. But anyways, it shuts off the valve, and then the pumps are on this delayed timer. So what happens is when this valve closes, these pumps still run, and they try their best to get all the water back into these tanks. It doesn't really do it. It does a decent amount. Um, it'll get most of the water back, maybe about 90%, whatever. But it can't get all the water back. But anyways, that just makes it so it kind of resets the system, getting the water out of the boiler, the steam out of the boiler, out of the turbines, and all that, and getting the water back into these two little tanks. So it does a decent job of that, but it could be better. Anyway, so the power for the main train, for the drive wheels and the lights and all that stuff, is in this 7 power cell here. So there's 2 here, there's 4 here. Wait, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7. Where's the 7th? Oh, 7th is right there. 7th is between the generators. So I have 4 batteries here, 2 batteries here, so that's 6, and then 1 battery here, stuff between the generators. So the 7 batteries, 7 medium-sized batteries, that's for all the train systems, except the reactors. Anything that has to do with the reactor is on its own separate battery system, which is powered by these 4 batteries here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So they're completely separate systems. They're completely independent of each other, and the electrical connection on the back is connected to this battery system up here for the reactor. It's not connected to the internal train battery or the train systems. Now the generators are another story, because the generators are actually hooked up to the internal tank batteries, which are these guys, these 5 generators. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Generators are all kind of on top. Wow, there you go. You can see them now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 right here in the middle. And then they're connected to the battery that's under, and then the battery that's under is connected to these 2 batteries, and then these 2 batteries are connected to these 4 batteries, and then these 4 batteries are like, it's just, they're all connected. They're all connected, except for, like I said, the reactor. The reactor has a separate system, and it only powers the reactor components. With that said, the reactor batteries need to stay charged too, so I added in a little generator right here that's connected to the same system or the same steam pipes as the other ones, or the same drive pumps as the other ones. So you can see this is the top. This is the top generator here, and you can see connected right before it goes into that top generator. It makes a little bit of a detour here and connects to this little generator. And this little generator is connected to the reactor supply. Everything else is all the other generators are dedicated to the main train batteries. This little tiny generator is dedicated to keeping the reactor charged, or the reactor power supply charged. In the event that fails, there's still a backup. I have a solar panel on the roof that can also help to charge the reactor battery, if you get to that point where it's desperation time. If somehow, I have no idea how you would do it, but if somehow you completely drain the reactor batteries, and that would be a goal that you would have to struggle to get there. You would have to basically be running the reactor, and then right before it starts producing steam, turn it off, and then do that about 100 times before and then the batteries would be dead. That would be probably the only way I could think of. Either that, or you spawn this in, and somehow a trickle charge kills it over hours and hours and hours. So I'm going to take you to I'm going to show you the actual train now, because we've been in the workbench for long enough. So here's the train. This is the Eclypse, so aptly named, and it actually took me freaking a long time to make that symbol. I could not, for the love of me, get that symbol to come out right, um, until I started messing around with the fading, like going with the solid black and then like a really dark yellow, and then kind of fade that out even more, and then turn it into a circle. That was the only way I could get that sucker to do that, and that that took me like a half an hour. uh, the lettering took me no time at all, especially when I decided to do the gradient, that kind of gradient up with each paintable sign. Just have the red go up one block with each paintable sign. Um, and then the letters were nothing. The letters were so simple to do. But that symbol right there, oh my god, I was pulling my hair out to get the radioactive symbol. And then we have my staircase on the back, which is something I am now doing with pretty much all of my new trains. I've been doing the staircase on the back because for anybody that knows trains in Stormworks, see these little frickin' posts right here? They're in your damn build area. Believe it or not, these posts are inside your build area. So your build area is that wide, right to the edge of this brown. Look where that post is. Look where that post is. Beep, beep, beep. So guess what happens if you build to the edge of the build area here? If you were to put a ladder down right here, guess what would happen? Bonk. That's what would happen. Your train would slam right into this post and stop. It wouldn't go anywhere. So, and I can demonstrate that because you can see right now that this stair right here, which is on the edge of the build line, would run into that post. That stair right there, right on the edge of the build zone. It would plow right into that post. So now I do staircases that can fold up and go straight to the ground. Now, for some reason, there's this little teeny tiny gap at the bottom, and apparently you can't step up that gap. So you have to you have to jump that gap for whatever reason. I don't know. And then you can raise the staircase back up. All right, so we're inside, and you can see we have our reactor. You can see the battery power. We have the top is the train battery. The bottom is the reactor battery, and you can see right now neither of them are moving. They're both sitting still. So, like I said, unless you do something really stupid, you can't kill the battery in the reactor. But I did provide. Actually, you can look at it go down. Oh, that's not showing because it's not powered up. That's why those displays aren't showing. But down here, you can actually watch the reactor battery. There's the reactor battery. Because this button here is the only thing that's actually hooked up to the reactor in this room. Everything else in this room is hooked up to the battery of the train. This is the only thing that's hooked up to the battery of the reactor. And look at it go down. There is drain. There is drain. I don't know what's draining it, but there is drain. So then we turn on the reactor. We're going to see it go down even faster because now we're powering up. We're moving the rods into position. We have the motors moving the rods into position. We have all the pumps are now running. Every pump is now running. There's no constant on for any of the pumps, so I don't know why it was draining power while it was turned off. But even the fan on the front, even the radiator fan, it only turns on when this is pressed. So Like I said, I don't know where the power was going. But, yeah. Oh, actually, I do know where the power was going. The two motors for the pistons, or the pistons, the two motors for the reactor rods, those are set on reverse. So when I turn off the reactor, they are -1. They're not 0. They're -1 because I need them to pull the rods out of the reactor. So they are -1. That's where the power usage comes from. Those two motors are running. So I just heard a thud, which means our gearboxes have kicked in, which means our boiler temperature hit 90. And now our boiler is coming up. You can watch our generator coming up. Our battery is full again. The battery down here should be going up. Yeah, look at her go. That's that little generator. That little generator is charging our reactors, our reactor battery supply. So it's not much. It's not much coming out of there, but it's enough to charge it up. So while the train is in operation, the reactor's battery will be charged or maintained, just as if it was an alternator on a small engine. You know, maintaining the motor's battery. There we go. And our train battery is also maxed. So we have maximum train battery, we have maximum reactor battery, and our generator is currently outputting 2,791, which is excellent. That's still over twice what my old giant reactor would produce. That's still over twice that number. Now let me take you for a little ride. 12:35. Okay. So I'm gonna turn off the brakes. We got forward lights, which I'm gonna leave off because we don't need them. We got our speed. We have a high gear. We have throttle control, and we got a reverse gear. And we have a clutch slip compensation, which is going to be kind of fun to watch. So let's head out. I'm going to start in low gear. We'll head out. You could hear that wheel slipping like a son of a bitch. Just slipping all over the place. Slip, slippy, 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 slippy. Slippy, 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 slippy. Watch what happens when I hit full throttle. What's going on? What's our speed? Our speed's at 47. Our clutch. We have a compensating clutch. Our speed's at 48. Well, what happens if we hit high gear? Squeak! Little teeny tiny squeak, and our speed starts going up. Our clutch is compensated a little more. Adjust the throttle, little bit of squeal. Now look at our speed. It's still going up. What's our clutch doing? Our clutch is still compensating. Look at that. It's still applying clutch. Up and up and up. Our speed. Up and up and up. Although you notice the compensation is slowed down quite a bit, and our speed is slowly climbing as it tries to find a sweet spot. It's trying to find the sweet spot between too much throttle and too much clutch and a wheel slip. It's trying to find that sweet spot where the wheels are going to slip. Because right now we have no wheel slip. We're at full throttle. Our controls are at full throttle. Our clutch is compensating. Our throttle's also compensating, but you can't visually see that anywhere. I don't have a display for that. But you can see our clutch compensating. Trying to find that little sweet spot of where too much power equals wheel slip. And right now we're doing 86. We're going so fast that the bubbles from the reactor water going across the top of the reactor, the bubbles are coming through the cab. That's how fast we're going. You see it still compensating. Oh. Did you see it jump there? You see it jumping now? You see it doing a little jump there. It goes to 66, and then it's like, no, that might be a little too much. Might be a little too much. And then it's trying to go up again. It's trying to go up again. We're at 89. Oh, it jumped down a little bit. It's like, nope. We had a little bit of wheel slip there. We had a little tiny bit of wheel slip there. You can see it drop down to 82. Little teeny tiny bit of wheel slip. So when it gets that little tiny bit of wheel slip, it backs off. It says, nope, that's no good. That's no good. And then it kind of creeps it back up again, looking for that little sweet spot. And now that wheel slip could have been caused by a corner. It could have been caused by a little bit of a hill. Maybe maybe we were going down a hill and all of a sudden we hit the bottom of the hill and the system was like, oh shit, it's not as easy anymore to go forward. So then it slips and it compensates after the slip. But now look, our clutch has found a sweet spot. Our clutch found a sweet spot, and it's holding on to that sweet spot. It's going to hold on to that sweet spot until it slips again. Oh, little tiny bit of slip. So now it's going to try and calculate out a new sweet spot. Ah, there it is. It's found a new sweet spot. We're not slipping. And the slip is so fast. The slip happens so fast that you don't get the squeal. And you don't. I should say it calculates it so fast that you don't get the squeal. You see a little bit of visual there from the wheel slip. But there's no squeal because it's adjusting so fast that it doesn't have enough time to make the sound. See, there's a little teeny tiny bit of wheel slip there. And it's going to do a compensation again. It's going to say, oh, I need to compensate again. Oh, wheel slip. We're in a corner. Wheel slip. Compensate. It is, and it's keeping as much of the drive power to the axles and to the rails as possible. But like I said, there's things that it has to compensate for, because when it goes into a corner, your wheels slip more in a corner. Your wheels slip more going uphill. They slip more, So your power setting on a straight stretch on flat is going to be different than your power setting when you're going climbing a hill like we're doing right now. So the slip's going to change. And then when we get over the hill, we start going down. Oh, we can add more power. But we're in a sweet spot, so we're going to stay in a sweet spot. If we lose that sweet spot again, we'll compensate again. And we'll also compensate if the player adjusts the speed, the throttle. So as soon as I touch the throttle, it automatically goes to full clutch and whatever the throttle is set at. As soon as I touch the throttle. And then it compensates again that fast. You can see it going from full clutch application down to 60 something. But if I hold on to the throttle, as long as I'm changing the throttle, it's gonna take whatever my input is and it's gonna fully max out the clutch. As soon as I let go, it's gonna compensate again. And I'll show you how I accomplish this, because it's actually kind of cool. I don't do it with any kind of microcontroller, just watching the slip and then backing off the clutch and all that. You know how you can do that with microcontrollers, use counters and I've tried to do it that way before, and it's messy. It's very messy. But I'm really getting into the Lua, the LUA, the Lua stuff, Lua programming, and I've done a lot of programming before in a few different languages, mostly touring. So I understand Lua, and there's still stuff that I don't I don't completely know. Like I could put all these buttons and stuff into an interactive console. I'm too lazy to do that. So instead, I have my push buttons and whatever. I mean, I could even put them all in a one of those I don't know what they call them, displays, the ones that can have four buttons, or can have a dial indicator and two buttons and an up and down button or whatever. I could program those. In fact, I've done it. You've seen it on my fishing boat. I just choose not to in this case. So I have my big buttons, and that's the way I like it. At least on this train, for now. I might put the other. I might do revamp this console with some different buttons, clean it up a little bit. But I like my throttle lever. I really like my sidewall throttle lever. And it just made sense to have the reverse button and the high gear button by it, and then over here I just needed a brake button and a light button. So I didn't really need too much. But, if you want to see where we are, we're halfway to the Arctic. And that took what amount of time? Sure as hell didn't take a lot of time. Now, I have a vehicle that can get me to the Arctic a hell of a lot faster than this train can. But this is a full train. This is not a vehicle that I purposefully built for super speeding up to the Arctic. This is something that I built to haul cargo. And for it to be doing this kind of speed on this rail is, quite frankly, ridiculous. I had no idea I would get this train up to this speed just by writing a script. But shit. Arctic, here we come, But anyways, so its maximum speed averages about 84, 85, somewhere in there. It drops down, of course, in corners, but then it climbs back up. So about 84, 85 is somewhere where it settles in. You see the clutch is not compensating anymore. It's pretty stable right now. But the fact that we're in a corner is why we're slowing down. We might get a slip here because that's a nasty corner. But you see it speed back up against, once we're out of the stupid corner, it speeds back up again. We're down to 82, 83, here we go back up, 84, 85. So on a straightaway it climbs up to 85, somewhere around 80, 85, 86. Corners it gets down to about 83. So, I mean, that's freaking respectable for a full train, engine. That is damn respectable, I think. Anyway, before we get into a 2-hour video, we're already at an hour. So before we get buried too much further into this, I'm going to take you back. I'm going to show you the magic of this train. And the beauty is I can put this in any train. That's the beauty. I design it basically to go in any train. Any train that has a throttle control to drive the wheels. Any train that uses the throttle control to drive the wheels. So this is the microcontroller right here. And I call it a microcontroller, but it's a frickin'... It's ridiculously big. But I call it a microcontroller. It does a hell of a lot more than you could do in a controller, half the size. So this is the size I needed for this job. Well, I might have been able to get it a little smaller, but I wanted to design this so that it would be usable on multiple trains. So that's what I built it for. It's a train wheel slip controller, and I'll take you into the script here. So what I bring in is I bring in the slip from wheel 1, 2, 3, and 4, so it can monitor up to 4 wheels. On my own vehicle right now, I'm just monitoring 3 because that's all I have. I have 1, 2, and 3. So I've designed it so that if you only have one, it'll only it only cares about the one. If you have 2, 3, or 4, up to 4 wheels, it'll track them all the same. It'll track them all the same. What it does is it automatically assumes if you don't have wheel 2, 3, or 4 connected, it automatically assumes that they're not slipping, and that's how it gets around it. But it still monitors all 4 for slippage, but it'll automatically assume that 4, 3, and 2 are not slipping if they're not connected. So the only one it's watching then is wheel 1. So if wheel 1 slips, it acts as if all the wheels are slipping. So whether one wheel slips or all wheels slip, it treats it all the same. Anyway, so with the 4 slips, we also have an output to our clutch, which is on our main drive shaft, and we have a throttle input in percentage because we need to know what the player's got the throttle set at. We have a throttle output to the motors, which is basically a compensated throttle, and then we have a compensation to a display, because the way that clutches work in Stormworks is they work backwards to the way that you would think. So say you're sitting in a car, and in order to control a clutch in a car, yeah, you have a clutch pedal. And we're talking about a standard transmission now. So some of you might not know what the hell I'm talking about because you've never driven a standard. But anyways, there's 3 pedals in a standard. You have your gas pedal, your brake pedal, and your clutch pedal. Now, most people would think if you're just sitting there with your foot not even on the clutch pedal, you would think that that would be a 0, right? If you're talking 0 to 1, you're talking about the clutch 0 to 1, you would figure that sitting there with your foot not on the pedal, that would be a 0, right? Because you're not doing anything. In reality, that's actually a 1. When you're in Stormworks, that is actually a 1. And the reason that's a 1 is because Stormworks doesn't go by clutch application, they go by engagement. So when you actually put your foot on the clutch pedal and push down, what you're actually doing is disengaging the clutch from the engine, or from the, like, to put it in simple terms, you're basically cutting the drive shaft. So you're separating the engine and the drive shaft, or from the drive shaft. You're causing a separation there. Now, normally in a car, it would be, an engine and a transmission. So when you put the pedal down, you'd be cutting off the transmission from the engine to let you shift gears or whatever you have to do. But in Stormworks, it does this. It does the same thing, but it's I don't know how to explain it. It's all done in the clutch itself. So when you are engaged, when you are fully engaged, and power is allowed to travel through the clutch freely, that is a 1. That setting is 1. When you are disconnected, which would be the same as you sitting in the car with your foot on the clutch pedal and pushing it all the way to the floor. So you're disengaging the clutch. That would be actually with the foot to the floor, putting in all the work you can to hold that clutch pedal down. That's a 0. Doesn't make any sense, right? In your mind, it doesn't make any sense. But you have to think of it as clutch engagement, not a clutch pedal. So if you're used to using a clutch pedal, and you go, okay, well, if I got my foot off the pedal, it's no clutch, and if I stomp on the pedal, that's full clutch. Well, technically, it's full pedal, and yes, it is full clutch. But when you're talking about actual engagement, pushing the pedal down is no engagement. Letting the pedal off is full engagement, because now your engine's connected to your transmission. So in Stormworks, they use clutch engagement as your number. So when we've got clutch engagement, a fully engaged clutch is going to be like fully engaged, meaning all the engine power can go through to the wheels. That's a 1. And when you have it disengaged, which means the engine can spin as fast as it wants and the tires aren't going to turn, that's a 0. So my output to the clutch has to be in that format. It has to be, if I want full engagement, that's a 1. If I want to disconnect, that's a 0. That's what I have to send to the clutch. Now, putting that on a display to show what your clutch is doing requires the opposite, because like I said, people's brains are wired so that when you're stepping on the pedal, you want to know how far you're pushing the pedal down. Is what you want to know. You don't want to know how engaged is the clutch with the engine. You want to know how far am I pushing the pedal down, right? You're either got your foot off the pedal or you're pushing it down slightly, or So that's what I have it doing down here, the clutch compensation. This shows how much clutch is actually being used. So if it's at 60, if it shows 60, that means you basically have the foot down, the pedal down 2/3 of the way. If you're talking about pedaling, like the use of the pedal, the clutch pedal in a car. So that's what I'm displaying out this gauge here, so you can see it as if you're like pushing down the pedal. How far are you pushing down the pedal? Like how far are you disengaging the clutch, basically. So that's what I wanted to put on a display, because it's easier for people to think of it that way, as how hard are you pushing on the clutch pedal, than it is to think of it as how much slip is there between the engine and the drive shaft. People don't think of clutches that way. They think of clutches as, even on motorbikes, you think of clutching as pulling the handle. Pulling the handle is would be 1, and letting go of the handle would be 0. Even on a motorbike, that's the way your brain thinks. If you're doing nothing, it's a 0. If you're pulling the handle, it's a 1. So that's what I'm displaying here, because in actuality, in real life, this number is going to be the opposite. If you're not touching the clutch on the handlebar, it's a 1. if you grab it and pull it, it's a 0. It's all backwards. But I mean that because we're talking about clutch engagement, so that's it makes logical sense. I can understand why Stormworks went that way, because you're talking about clutch engagement. You're not talking about clutch actuation. You're not talking about the actuation of the clutch by a pedal or a control. You're talking about the actual clutch engagement from engine to transmission, or between the two, from engine to output shaft, or flywheel to output shaft, whatever setup you have. It's clutch engagement that you're dealing with. So that's the number you need. But anyway, that was a long rant. But now hopefully you understand how clutches work, because I'm about to get into it. All right, so we have our controller, and like I said, our controller takes the throttle input from the controls, from your throttle control. It brings that into percentage, so 0 to 100, and then it takes the 4 wheel slips and brings those in as well, and that goes into a Lewis script. And then out of that Lewis script, we have 3 numbers. We have the throttle output to our motors, we have the clutch output to our clutch, and we have the clutch compensation, which we can throw on a display. We don't have to, but we can if we want to. That's why I decided to include that. And then we have our Lewis script in the middle, and some property text, which basically says, "Hey, read the connector descriptions." Because the connector descriptions tells you what the hell you have to do. So, for example, the connector for the throttle input percentage, it says this value should be 0 to 100. And then on the output, we have throttle out, connect to your motor's throttle, connect to the clutch on the main drive shaft, and then it says send it to a gauge. Min max is 0 to 1. So if you want to connect that to a gauge, you already know your min max is 0 to 1. I tried to make it dummy proof. The same here. Wheel 1 slip, wheel 2 slip, if applicable. Wheel 3 slip, if applicable. Wheel 4 slip, if applicable. You don't have to have 4 wheels. That's what it says, if applicable. If you have 2 wheels, you're fine. If you have 3 wheels, you're fine. If you have 4 wheels, you're fine. If you have 1 wheel, you're fine. You can do it anyway. It'll treat it all the same. So anyway, into the Lewis script. I'm gonna try to speed through this, although I might not be able to. Anyway, so we have variables starting off. We have actually there's one here that I should have changed. Where was it? NT. I want to change all NTs to CT. All NTs. I want to find all the NTs. I'm probably going to screw up the script now doing this because I'm probably going to miss one somewhere. Where's our NTs? NTs. CT. Whoop. CT. I meant to do this a while ago, but I forgot until I was just looking at the script now. CT. Anything that says NT needs changed to CT. And then I think we'll put our NT at the end here. CT. Okay, so they should all be CT now. Because it's supposed to stand for calculated throttle. I had it standing for new throttle, but it's supposed to be calculated throttle. Okay, so, and then we get all that stuff. Okay, I think we're good here. I don't really need to change it in the descriptions, but I'll do a quick scan to see if I can find some NTs in the descriptions. Oh, NT. There's NT. CT. Oh, there's an NT. There's another NT. I don't think we have an NT there. Okay, anyway. Continuing on. Okay, so we have some variables, which we need. You always need variables in a program. Otherwise, I don't know what the hell your program's going to do without any variables. So we have to initialize our variables. So we're going to start with the throttle. This is the throttle that the player has set. Last throttle. This is kind of like a placeholder. So when we go into the next loop, we know what the throttle was in the previous loop. This is our calculated throttle. So this is the after we've calculated everything with the wheel slip, we're trying to figure out what the new throttles or what the throttle setting is supposed to be to minimize wheel slip. So that's the calculated. This is the 4 inputs for the wheel slip. And like I said, we default them to false because if we don't have something connected, we don't want it to think that it's got wheel slip. So if nothing's connected, it automatically defaults to false. No wheel slip. So if we only have one wheel connected, the rest of the wheels will always not be slipping. But it'll still check that one wheel for slipping. So here we have our variable for our clutch setting. And I default that to 1 because, like I said, 1 is full engagement, not disconnected. So we want our clutch to default to being fully connected to our motor. We want it to default to being fully connected to our motor. Below that, we have our clutch compensation. That's what we're going to output so they can put it on a gauge or put it on a dial. And then we have our TBS and our CBS, which are TBS is throttle before slip, and CBS is clutch before slip. These are 2 values that we're going to use to hold on to the last known goods. So it's basically like, was this throttle good? Yes. Okay, we're going to record that. And then the next loop, it's like, oh, we slipped. But we know in the last loop we didn't, and we know what the throttle was in the last loop. So, you know, we know what the good number was in the last loop. So then, now that we have all of our variables, we're going to start our loop, and we're going to grab our inputs. We're going to grab our input for the throttle setting, or we're going to grab our input for the 4 slips, for the four wheels, basically, from their slip connectors. Now, we got to do a couple of checks before we start anything. The first check is going to check to see if we've already started calculating our compensated throttle. So we're gonna start out by checking to see if we've already started calculating our throttle compensation. So if our throttle compensation doesn't exist, we're going to set the throttle compensation to be whatever the current throttle setting is, because we need a number. We need a number to compensate. So we're gonna if there's no compensation number, we're just gonna take the throttle as our compensated number for now. And then we're going to come down to here. This next one is our check to see if the player changed the throttle. So at the very end of the program, we output what the last throttle was. The last throttle we know about is equal to the current throttle. At the very end of the loop. We do this at the very end of the loop. And the reason we do this at the very end of the loop is because we don't want the throttle could change while the program's running. It's not bloody likely the throttle's going to change while the program's running, but we want to do it at the very end of the loop. So the last throttle we know about is the current throttle. Then the loop starts again, and we go, hey, you know that last throttle that we just recorded? Is it the same as the current throttle? If it's not, that means the player moved the setting from the last loop to this loop. So now we're going, okay, well, we have to reset now. So our calculated throttle is going to equal the new throttle because the player changed the throttle. So now all of our calculations are wrong. We're going to set the clutch to 1 because we're not compensating for anything. So we're just going to set the clutch to be fully engaged. So you know, wheel slip happens. Hey, wheel slips happens. if the wheel slips at the new setting, then we can start our calculations again. If it doesn't, then we're good. Clutch is fully engaged. Continue on as whatever the throttle setting's at. And then we also need to clear our saved throttles. So our saved known goods, for our throttle and our clutch. We need to clear those because now that the player has adjusted the throttle setting, those don't. If we had those already saved, they're no longer valid. If the player decreases the throttle, we might be able to go to full clutch. So we're not going to hold on to the old clutch setting because we might be able to increase the clutch now, or the clutch engagement. We might be able to go to full clutch. We might be able to take it up to 1. So if we're compensating right now and saying, like if we didn't do this, if we didn't wipe these out, if we just reset the throttle, then what would happen is when you bring the throttle down, say you're going full steam, you're going full out, and like you saw, our clutch was compensating at about 60 something percent, which in reality that would be its engagement was only about 30 something percent. So the clutch was only engaged about 30% of what was coming out of the motor was going through that clutch to the wheels. That's what that means. Only 30% of that power was actually going to the wheels. The rest of it was just being kind of lost. So what happened? What would happen then is if we didn't reset that, if we lowered our throttle, there would be no wheel slip. The wheels would not slip when we lowered our throttle because they're not slipping with the throttle at the current setting. So as we lower our throttle, it would continue to lower power to the back wheels, but it wouldn't adjust the clutch. So we would end up bringing back, and at some point we would get to a point where our throttle is at, say our throttle's at like 10% or whatever. We bring our throttle back to 10%, and we're just barely crawling along because our clutch is still only putting 30% of that power out to the wheels. It's not putting out 100% of that 10% throttle. It's only putting out 30% of that 10% throttle. See what I mean? So if we don't reset our clutch before slip, if we don't reset our known goods, then when we decelerate, we're going to be stuck at numbers that aren't any good. They're completely crap for what we've set the throttle to. So we have to reset those because we want it to relearn when we change the throttle setting up or down. We want it to relearn its compensation. So that's basically our housekeeping for each loop. There's housekeeping at the start, and then there's housekeeping if the throttle's changed. Then we get into the nitty gritty, which is this section here. This section's this section here is where the magic happens. This whole section here. And now this first section is if the wheel slips. The second section is if the wheel doesn't slip. So I separated the two sections. So we have if wheel slips and if wheel doesn't slip, because we still have to, even if the wheels don't slip, we still have to find that magic number. So we still have to calculate that out. So I'm going to do some bouncing between the two of them because it doesn't make sense for me to completely explain this. If I completely explain this without explaining some of this in the process, then there's going to be confusion. So I'm going to start by just pointing out that this is if the wheel slips, this is if the wheel doesn't slip. And it's only for this loop. Each loop it's going to check to see if the wheel slips. So if the wheel slips, it doesn't do this. If the wheel doesn't slip, it does this, but not this. So each loop it goes through and it does only one of these in each loop. Only one happens in each loop. So the wheel's either slipping or not slipping. It doesn't say, oh, the wheel's slipping, I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. It doesn't do that. That's not how programming works. Especially since I'm using an if statement, and then I'm using an else statement. So if this, then this. If not this, then this is basically how it works. So if it does one section in this loop, it will not do the other section in this loop, and vice versa. Okay, so now that I've explained that, this will hopefully make more sense to you. So we come in, remember that we've got the player messing with the throttle, or we have the player changing the throttle, because all of this is going to start with the player slowly increasing the throttle, right? Because the throttle starts at 0, you're not going anywhere. First thing that's going to happen, the player's going to increase throttle. So, the player increases the throttle. Our compensated throttle now equals the throttle. Our clutch is at full, and we have no known goods. So, if the wheel doesn't slip, nothing happens. Because the player's adjusting the setting still, right? So if the wheel's slipping, and the current throttle, or the compensated throttle is less than the throttle that the player has set, we're gonna output it. That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna create a temporary known good. We're gonna add to the throttle, and if the added throttle is greater than but the player set, we'll just use what the player set. So there's a compensation here, even when the player is increasing throttle. It'll still go through and say, okay, we're gonna play along, and it's gonna add that 0.1, even if the customer's at, or if the customer, I don't know why I'm saying the customer, if the player is adding throttle, it's still gonna add that little tiny 0.1, which the player's not gonna even notice. The player will not notice that. And even when throttling down, it's still going to hit here. If the wheels don't slip, it's still going to hit here, and it's going to add that little teeny tiny 0.1. But like I said, the player's not even going to notice that. There's going to be no notice whatsoever of that even happening. It's such a small number that the player will be oblivious to it. But it'll happen. It'll add it. Throttle up, throttle down. If the wheel doesn't slip, it's going to add that 0.00001. Up or down, doesn't matter. Now, odds are, what's going to actually happen is as the player's increasing throttle, you're going to get wheel slip. So, when the wheel slip happens, it's just going to happen. As soon as the player lets go of the controls, the wheel slip's still going to be happening. But what'll happen is it's going to say, okay, we got a wheel slip, right? So now we have to correct that wheel slip. So if we don't have any recorded known goods, which we're not going to because the player just finished adjusting the throttle. So if we don't have any known goods and the wheels are slipping, what we're going to do is we're going to back down 1% throttle and 1% clutch. We're going to back down 1% throttle, 1% clutch, and see what happens. Because remember, these are if statements. So it's not going to do all of this. It's not going to do everything. It's just going to follow that if statement. So if this and if this, do this. Skip everything else. That's how this works. So if it has no known goods and the wheels are slipping, then back it off by 1%. And then it's going to back off 1% of that. And it's going to back off 1% of that. And then 1% of that. And then 1% of that. Until it hits a point where the wheels stop slipping. And that's when it's going to shift gears. Because now, when the wheels aren't slipping, we go here. And we go, okay, so now our compensated throttle is less than the player's throttle setting, but our compensated throttle is not equal to our last known good throttle, because we don't have a last known good throttle, right? We don't have one. We've been slipping since we started calculating this, so there is no last known good throttle. So now that we've stopped slipping, we're going to record that as our last known good throttle. So we're going to take a snapshot of our current throttle that we've compensated, our compensated throttle. So we're not slipping for the first time ever. We're not slipping. We're going to take our compensated throttle. We're going to save that as a good throttle. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take our compensated throttle and we're going to add 0.00001 to it. This minuscule, almost non-existent number. We're going to add that. Now, if in some ridiculous event our compensated throttle ends up higher than the player's current throttle setting, which it never should, but if it does, we're going to set our compensated throttle as what the player set. So we're never going to go above what the player sets. So if the player sets 10%, we're not going to go above 10%. We're going to stop at that 10%. But, like I said, we're coming out of a wheel slip, so you're not going to be at 10% anyways. Or you're not going to be at whatever the player set. So it makes sure first that we're below, our compensated throttle is below the player's throttle, and our compensated throttle is not equal to our known good. So if our current throttle, or if our compensated throttle is less than the player's throttle, and our compensated throttle is not equal to our known good, then we record it. We add that 0.00001, and that's it for the throttle. Now, along with the throttle, we're doing the clutch too. So if our clutch is less than 1, which it's going to be, because we compensated up here, remember? So our clutch is going to be less than 1. And our clutch is not equal to our last known good clutch setting. Because remember, we're still in the loop right now where we slipped. We just stopped slipping. So this is the last loop we slipped. So we don't have a last known good of anything. We don't have a last known good throttle. We don't have a last known good clutch. So if our clutch is not equal to our last known good clutch, then we're going to record this clutch as our last known good clutch because it didn't slip this time. And then again, we're going to take our clutch number, we're going to add this little minuscule amount to it just to see what happens. And then if for some reason our clutch is above 1, which it's not going to be, but just in case, I always put this check in just as a fail-safe. It's never going to happen, but it just is a fail-safe. I have to put it in there to make sure that it can't happen. So if the clutch is greater than 1, then clutch equals 1 because you can't go higher than 1. So I just put that in there as a... These here don't really mean anything because they're, like I said, the odds of them happening are practically non-existent. So, but they're there. They're there as error corrections, just in case something stupid happens and it ends up happening. Just in case. So anyway, so in this loop, we were squealing tires until we got here. So we were backing off on both the throttle and the clutch. We're backing off. All of a sudden it didn't slip. So now we're down here and we're like, okay, we don't have a last known good, so let's create one. And then let's add to our existing number to see what happens. Same here. We don't have a last known good, so we'll create one. And then we're going to add that 0.00001 just to see what happens. Do we get wheel slip on this next one? No, we don't. Huh. So again, our current throttle is not our last known good because we added. So our current throttle is not our last known good. So we're gonna record it because we didn't slip this time either. And then we're gonna add another 0.00001. And same down here. We didn't slip this time, so our clutch is not equal to our last known good because we added one. We added that 000. We added this to it last time. But it didn't slip. So we're gonna say this as our new known good. And then we're gonna try adding another one. And then eventually what's gonna happen is it's gonna slip again. And then we're gonna be like, oh. So then we come up here again to the top because we've slipped. We've slipped again. So our TBS 0 and CBS 0? No, because we have last known goods, right? We have last known goods. Now, is the current throttle equal to the last known throttle? No, because we added the 0.001. So we come down to this third point, which means, okay, make our current throttle our last known good and make our current clutch our last known good. Now what should happen is everything stabilizes. We have a known good clutch, we have a known good throttle, and everything's going to stabilize. Right? Beautiful. Perfect. Uh-oh, we slipped again. We hit a corner and we just slipped. Well, shit. Now what do we do? Well, if we slip and our current throttle, or our compensated throttle, is equal to our known good throttle, and our current clutch is equal to our last known good clutch, and our throttle is greater than 0. This is important, because if our throttle's at 0, then it doesn't matter because our throttle's Our throttle's at 0. So if it slips, if we have a wheel slip, and the reason I put this throttle greater than 0 is because you can actually have wheel slip when you're stopped. You can have wheel slip when you're stopped. If you're on a hill and you have a heavy load and your train starts sliding, that's wheel slip. if you have the brakes on full, your train is stopped, but the weight of your train is causing your train to slide forward, you're not driving. That's wheel slip. So we're not gonna adjust the throttle if there is no throttle. So that's why I put that in there. That's another error check that will probably never happen, but I had to put it in because my brain wouldn't let me not put it in. I wanted a program that was infallible. And I shouldn't say that because this program is still fallible, but it's as close to infallible as I get. But anyway, so if our current throttle, or if our corrected throttle is equal to our last known good throttle, so if we're currently using our last known goods, basically is what this says. If we are currently using our last known goods, but we slipped, then we're going to take our last known good, we're going to divide it by 100, and then we're going to multiply it by 99.9. So this is what this is going to do. Is it's going to take our current good throttle, and it's going to make it 99.9% of that current good throttle. And we're going to set that as our current throttle. We're not going to set it as our known good because our known goods aren't good anymore. So we're going to set that as our current throttle. And we're going to do the same thing with our clutch. We're going to take our good clutch number, and we're going to take 99.9% of that. So we're slicing off 0.1% of that number, and we're throwing it as our clutch number. And then we're going to see what happens. Oh, and by the way, we're getting rid of our known goods because they're no good anymore. So we're decreasing our current throttle, or our calculated throttle, and we're decreasing our clutch by 0.1% because we slipped on our known goods. So we're just giving that little tiny bit of decrease there, just to see what happens. And we're clearing out our last known goods because they're no longer valid. They're no longer good. We slipped. They're no longer good. So then what happens is it goes through to the next loop. Did it slip? If it did slip, then we're back up here because there's 0 again. We zeroed out our last known goods, so we don't have any last known goods. So if it slips again, we're up here. If it didn't slip, then we're down here again. And what we're going to do is we're going to add that 0, 0, 0, 1 again, just to see if we can inch it up there to find another stable known good throttle. And that's how this program works. That's how this program works. It backs it off fairly quick. I'm not going to say fairly quickly because it's only 99%. And then it goes 99% of the 99%. It doesn't drop it to 98%. So the way that this works, the way that this here works, is it goes to 99. It drops it down 99%, and then it drops it down 99%, or it drops it down. I'm saying it wrong. Sorry. It drops the throttle 1%, and then it drops the throttle 1% of the 99%, and then it drops the throttle 1% of that, and then it drops it 1% of that. So it's not like it's going 99, 98, 97, 96. There's a little bit of leftover every time it comes down. So it's every time it drops a little less than the time before. So it's like we got to be getting close, you know. It's like, okay, so 100% is too much. We're going to bring it back to 99. That was too much. Okay, let's bring it back a little bit, but not as much as we did before. And oh, that didn't work. Okay, let's bring it back some more, but not as much as we did the first time. And then it brings it back again. Oh, well, we got to be getting close, so we're going to bring it back some more, but not as much as we did last time. So it keeps bringing it back on a gradient, basically. So it could go through this. It could go through this loop 5 or 6 times and only lower it 3% instead of lowering it 5%. But once it hits that no wheel slip and goes into this program, then we're narrowing in very, very small amounts. We're using very, very, very small amounts to get to that sweet spot. And once we find that sweet spot, we lock it in, and hopefully it doesn't have to change. But if it does, we're prepared for that. So, and the way that we deal with that is we take away 0.1%. 0.1%. We just back off 0.1%, see what happens. And if it still slips, well, we're back into the 90%. We gotta cut back even more. And then we cut back 99%, or we cut back 1% of that, and we cut back 1% of that, 1% of that, until we're sweet spot again. Then we up again, just to see if we can find that sweet spot. And as you saw, it has a pretty good time, or pretty easy time finding that sweet spot. So this could work. This system could work for almost any train motor. It could work for because the throttle output it is a throttle and clutch output. So it could work on diesel locomotives. It could probably work on steam locomotives. I don't know how well it would work on steam locomotives, because this throttle would probably be your steam setting, I would think. Your steam pipe to your drive wheels. It would probably be a valve on your steam pipe. It wouldn't be the throttle at your furnace. It would be the steam probably coming out of the boiler. I think that would be this setting. Steam that comes out of the boiler and goes to the drive units. I forget what you call them. But yeah, that's probably what that would be, your throttle. And then your clutch, I really don't know what your clutch would be. I have no clue what your clutch would be on a steam driven. This system adjusts these independently. So clutch and throttle are both adjusted at the same time. So if you don't have a clutch, like in the boiler, the steam train or steam driven train, you could probably get away with just a throttle, because it would compensate on the throttle. It wouldn't need a clutch to compensate. It would just compensate on the throttle, which at that point I think would be your steam release. Like I said, your steam release from your boiler to your drive wheels. And then of course you'd monitor your slip. So if you're slipping, decrease the steam. If you're not slipping, bring the steam back up until you reach a point where you start to slip again. So I'm pretty sure that would function the same as an electric system or a diesel system. Like if you have a diesel system, you would be connected to your throttle, and you'd also be connected to your clutch, which is your drivetrain. So I'm pretty sure this would work for pretty much any train that you wanted to set it up on. So, I mean, you've seen the program. It's not that difficult. I will be putting it online, and I'll be putting it on the workshop. Yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about that. In fact, I'll put it on the workshop right now. Let's resave it. Train wheel slip controller, and we'll throw it on the workshop. Why not? I got a whole bunch of shit on there. It is a calculation for land. I always mark creative too. So the calculation mechanical, I guess. And we'll call it the train wheel slip controller. Sure you want to upload it? Yep. There you go. Anybody who wants to control their train wheel slip, there you go. All you need is your throttle and your wheel. Your wheel slip. And it outputs to throttle and a clutch. Huzzah. Anyway, so that's the magic. That's what makes it happen. That's what gets this sucker up to 80 something. Because without that, she'd be sliding constantly. I mean, you can see the second I touched the throttle, she was spinning. She was wheel slipping right from the gate, right from the gate. And the reason it's doing that is because I'm running two motors, two medium motors into the 3, that's a hell of a lot of traction, but it's also a lot of torque. So she breaks free pretty easy. Pretty easy. So, yeah. So that's that. I mean, I don't know what else to say about this. It's my first successful nuclear reactor train that requires no additional fueling. It has excess power, a lot of excess power. So it could very easily power, the train cars behind it, attached to it, I should say. It could easily provide power to all those. I could put a whole bunch of container cars behind it. It would be able to supply every single one of them. So I think that's a win. I think that's a win. I don't know what else to say. So hopefully you like this video. I know we're at the 2-hour mark, but I hope I gave you some education there. I try to make it more than just a showcase of the vehicle. I try to teach you something while I'm at it, and hopefully you learn stuff to do your own projects and make them successful. So, that's how I got to this point, was learning off of others. I take what they do, and if I need an example of something, I'll start working on it, and then I'll get ideas of other things to do. Like this train controller came from just out of nowhere. I shouldn't say out of nowhere. I had a wheel slip problem, so I looked online. I would be lying if I said out of nowhere. It actually came from online. I looked online for how to correct a wheel slip, and believe it or not, I found a very old video. I say very, but I think it was like 3 years old, by Mr. New Jersey, who I used to watch. I watched his videos all the time. I used to watch his videos all the time. I haven't really seen any new ones, new Stormworks videos, which kind of makes me sad, because he was a very good Stormworks individual. But I haven't seen many creative videos of his. I think he still does the contests. I think, or the videos where he looks at workshop designs, like things that are put on the workshop. I think he still does those videos, but I haven't seen any how-tos recently, which is kind of sad, because he had a lot of really good how-to videos. But anyways, so I saw an old how-to video, and the way that he wasn't using Lua for any of his wheel slip. He was using, he used a capacitor and some number blocks, I think it was, and I looked at what he was building, and I was like, okay, there's a better way to do this. There's a lot better way to do this. And that's when I started. I started building the controller. And then as I was building the controller, I was like, oh, I got to compensate for this. Oh, I got to compensate for that. Oh, I need to increase I need to increase at a very, very tiny amount, because when I first started playing with it, I was, increasing by one and decreasing by one, and I was like, okay, well, this is not fixing the problem. So then I was like, okay, let's decrease by 0.1, and then let's, you know, increase by 0.1, and it still wasn't fixing the problem. It was still slipping like crazy, and then not slipping, and then slipping, and not like it was going down the rails, going skip, 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 all the way down the rail, because it was overcompensating. It was compensating too much. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. I'm in a Lewis script, right? I'm in Lewis scripting, which is done every tick, which means the program runs 60 times a second. No wonder it's having a hard time compensating. It's trying 60 times a second to perfect this number, and it's adding like 0.1, 0.2. So in 1 second, it's adding like, or it could be technically adding and subtracting like solid numbers, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. It could be adding and subtracting 1, 2, 3, 4, and it only has 100 digits to work with. So if it's slipping and it's like -1, oh, +1, oh, -2, +2, +1, +3, -5, if it's going like that, it's gonna slip so much. So I was like, okay, I need to do really, really tiny compensations, which is why I got down to the 0.00001, because at 60 times a second, your capability is every second you're adding. You're not adding 0.00001. You're adding every second. You're adding 0.000 0.00060 is what you're adding every second, or what your capability is of adding every second. So in order for it to calculate, and in order for it to very smoothly get to that set point, I had to give it a very, very small number, and that's what that's what a Lewis script is capable of. If I was doing that outside of a Lewis script in just a microcontroller using a counter, like Mr. New Jersey was, I couldn't calculate that fast. I couldn't calculate. I couldn't calculate out the sweet spot that as fast as I can with the Lewis script. So um, that's basically why I ended up doing it in Lua, and why I ended up having such success with it, was because I could calculate a much smaller change to the throttle and the clutch, and find that sweet spot so close to slippage that it didn't actually slip. When I jumped back a small amount and got to my sweet spot, there was a very, very tiny gap between when it slipped and when it didn't slip, and that gap was so small that it made almost no difference to how much power I was putting to the rails. I wasn't losing any power to the rails, because, like I said, when it settles out, it's only 0.00001 off of when it slips. It is so close to wheel slippage that it's phenomenally efficient. And I'm trying not. I mean, I don't mean to toot my own horn here, but it's just the logic of when I'm working it through, and I'm going, that is so close to wheel slip that, you know, a small breeze would cause your wheels to slip. It is that close. So every single bit of torque and power that I can put to these rails, I am putting to these rails. I'm not losing any of it. So it's just it works out to a ridiculous efficiency, and that's why this train, which weighs a frickin' ton, because this reactor is heavy. This train weighs a frickin' ton, and I can get it up to 85, which is crazy. That's absolutely crazy. I would have never thought I could get that fast with a train this size. I figured the maximum I could probably get a train this size would be probably around 25 to 30. Maybe. 80? 85? Shit no. Not in your life. Um, in fact, this train, I don't. You know what? I don't know if it works anymore. I'm gonna see if it does. I have I have this diesel Arctic sled and I have a nuclear Arctic sled. I don't think the nuclear sled worked. I don't think the nuclear sled worked. Or maybe it did? Maybe it did. Hold on. Let's spawn this in and take a quick look at it. I made two sleds because when you're playing in um, when you're not creative mode, when you're playing in survival mode, unlocking the Arctic is a task. So I'm gonna see what happens here. The reactor should be on. Wait, how am I moving? Are my brakes on? The brakes on. Throttle is 0. Forward control. What is this? Forward reverse? Is that forward and reverse? I think it's forward and reverse. And then lights. I have lights. Okay. So the reactor's warming up. This is my old reactor, by the way. This was my original. This is my original reactor. Holy shit! This is when I made a block and I look at the coolant rods in there. Yeah, this is my original reactor. I don't even think this thing is. I don't know how efficient this thing is. I don't think it's efficient at all, actually. Our boiler temperature's coming up. We have one steam turbine, and that steam turbine, all it does is spins the prop. Steam turbine spins the prop. That's it. So where's our, okay, that's our radiator temperature. Where the hell's our, that's our reactor temperature. Oh, boiler here. Okay, here. Boiler's coming out. No, where's our, okay, so we're at 105. We should be making, oh, there it goes. Okay, there it goes. All right, let's see what happens here. Brakes off. Woo! Throttle up. We're moving at 39, 40. I think this thing had a sweet spot. Oh, what's happening? Oh, our steam pressure's getting too high. Or our boiler temperature's getting too high. I think this thing maxes out at probably around 50 something, I think. This is supposed to be a rocket sled up to the Arctic, but as you can see, it is not. So, let me show you the other one, because the other one I believe was a rocket sled up to the Arctic, but I don't know what speed it. I'm not sure what speed it did. So let me show you the diesel one, because I'm pretty sure the diesel one was like I said, a rocket sled up to the Arctic. This one was not. This was my first attempt at trying to make a fast nuclear. Oh, I don't know if this still work anymore, because I don't think these work like this anymore. This was a rocket sled. It moved like a son of a bitch. We'll see what happens though. But even this, I don't even think this got up to 80. I think it was like 50 or something like that. But I don't even know if it's going to work now. Oh, I have to have a little throttle. Right? How's this working? Max power on. Wait a start. Oh, there it goes. Oh, we're starting. We're moving. I didn't even think this was my fastest sled back then. Oh, we're at 75, 76, 77. I think my nuclear train still goes faster. '82. Now this might go as fast as my nuclear train. But this was how I got up to the Arctic before. I'd ride this rocket friggin' this rocket vehicle up to the Arctic. But the problem was I never made it to the Arctic because there's see 2 gas tanks on the top. Look at the I think I got my fuel readings on the back here, don't I? Yeah. See 27? See that 27 counting down? That's my fuel. That right there. That's my fuel. So I don't think I'll make it to the Arctic. I might. Well, I'm 26. I might. I don't think I will. I think I'll be out of fuel before I get there. And once I do get there, I won't have the fuel for the trip back. So, but like I said, this sled was to get me to the Arctic, so I can unlock a base at the Arctic. So when I had enough money for this sled, plus buying a base up there, I'd take off in the sled. But if I recall, I don't recall if this thing actually made it to the Arctic. That was my goal, though, was to use it to get to the Arctic. But I don't actually know if it did. I don't remember if it made it there. But we're ripping though. We're at 82. But my nuclear train's faster. The one I just built. She's faster. And it doesn't rely on fuel. Other than, of course, the reactor. There's my fuel gauge on the side there. It's looking pretty sad. Oh yeah, I have some fuel tanks underneath. I have 2 fuel tanks underneath. Or, oh, no, I have 3 fuel tanks underneath. 1, 2, 3, yeah. 3 fuel tanks underneath, 2 fuel tanks above. Or are those water tanks? No, those are fuel tanks. So I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 fuel tanks. Total of 5 fuel tanks. And I still think I'm going to run out of fuel before I get there. I'm at 16. One of those is temperature. I think that's temperature. I think. One of those is radiator temperature. I forget what all these numbers are. I think that's RPM. Or no, that's not RPM. Is that that might be RPM. That might be RPM. This is definitely fuel. So, I don't know if it'll make it to the Arctic or not. We're still kicking along at 82, which is, again, that's slower than my... That's slower than my other one. My new nuclear. But this used to be my fastest train to the Arctic, and it couldn't tow anything. It's got no connector on the back. It was just to get me there, so I could buy a build location. That's all it was for. Get me to the Arctic to buy a build location. Now I know there are trains faster than this. I know there's a lot of trains faster than this. I've seen people get to the Arctic in like literally seconds. It's ridiculous how fast they go. They're like 100, 200, 300, and they're ripping down these tracks so fast that I don't even know how the game's managing to keep them on the rails. But yeah, I have not myself been successful getting that fast. I'm sure there's a few ways that can be done. I've never built a rocket. I've never actually built a rocket sled, which might be fun. It might be fun to try. Actually, you know what? I could very, very easily do that right now. It's not going to get me to the Arctic. It definitely won't get me to the Arctic. It'll run out of fuel long before that. But it might be fun to just screw around with. So let's do that for a second here. Let's just screw around for a second. Since we have nothing better to do with our life. Right? Right. Sure. No, it's just me. Oh, I screwed up. Dang. I don't want to grab the deck. I don't want to grab the deck. I'm going to grab everything above the deck. No! Why'd you grab the deck? I clicked on the freaking engine. Is the engine in the deck? I don't think so. Damn it. Grab the engine. Okay. Grab the fans. Okay. Grab the top. Why did you grab the bottom? Oh, the fans are part of the deck. Because I don't want to grab the deck. Okay. So we will. I see how this. I see what's going on now. I see where my problem is. Okay. So we'll start with the fans. We'll get rid of them first. We could probably get rid of that gas tank while we're at it. Yeah, that'll work. All right, cut that. Clear. All right, now we'll go engine. Engine, get rid of these pipes. Oh, shit. Get rid of all that. Don't need any of that. And what else is on the deck that we can get rid of? We can get rid of all this crap on the deck that we don't need. Sure, we'll get rid of that too. And we can actually get rid of almost everything right up to the front. Is there a battery there? Somewhere? I don't see a battery anywhere. Where the hell's the battery? There's a generator. Where's the battery? Oh, I see it. I see the battery. Okay, the battery's right there under that pipe. Okay, so we'll get rid of this. Cut that out. And then we will get rid of these gas cans, that air duct, and come down to these pipes, that. Okay, we'll get rid of that. Clear that out. And I think we can leave the rest. There's not much left. We'll get rid of this. And we'll get rid of these. And we'll get rid of the radiators. We don't need the radiators. Okay. So this should be interesting. Oh, we'll get rid of the fuel tanks because you don't need the fuel tanks. We don't need the fuel pipes. But I'm not going to screw around with getting all those pipes out of there. We'll just get rid of that. Okay. Now, I'm probably not even going to save this, so I don't know why I'm putting in all this effort to clean it up, but whatever. Let's get to rockets. Yes. Let's get to... We want the large ones? I don't know if we want the large one. We want the large one? Maybe we should go with some medium ones. Let's do some medium ones. I think we'll be able to fit more of those on. Who am I kidding? We're gonna fit on as many frickin' rocket shit here as we can. Rocket sled on rails. This is hopefully this is gonna get us there. If this doesn't well, it's not gonna get us there, but hopefully this is gonna rip us along the track at a fairly substantial speed. If it doesn't, that's gonna be a sad day. That'd be a very sad panda, as they say. Okay, and do we want one on top there too? Fucking right we do. All right. So, all right. Let's go. So that's the medium. Where's the small? Solid rocket, small. And then That's huge, huge, large, large. Small. Okay. So small is a 1 by 1, really? Oh man. This is gonna be freaking interesting. This is gonna be ridiculously interesting. We could probably stage these too. In fact, I think I'm going to stage these. Just just for shits and giggles, I'm gonna stage these. And I happen to have a controller for that. Oh, that one's too far. I happen to have a controller to stage these. You know, what am I doing right now? What am I doing with my life? Grab that guy. Okay. Extend it out to there. Oh, I didn't want to grab the shit. Grab that, extend it out to work. There. Okay, now we'll copy. Copy. Paste. 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 Oh yeah. Go down here. This way. Okay, so I have to cut down, I have to cut 2 off of that. So we will clear that out. We'll cut down 1, 2 there. 2 at the end. There. Oh shit. 1, 2 there. 2. Yeah, let's grab 2 of them in a row. Why not? Make it easier. Copy that. Down. Actually, I should have copied it vertically, but whatever. Because now I'm going to have this problem. Alright, paste. 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 And too lazy to flip them up, so I'm just going to paste over. That. Oh my. That is absolute stupidity. But hey, that's what Stormworks is all about, getting stupid. Seeing how stupid you can get. Okay. So, we got the big rockets, we got the small rockets. Now we need the ends. We need the end caps for them. Oh, those are liquid. Damn. Oh, that's solid. Okay, wait, what? We're gonna add the liquid rockets. That would have powered off liquid fuel. Excuse me. Alright, so, well, we'll put the, Shit. That just looks ridiculous. Oh, I gotta merge all these, I forgot. And I gotta merge these guys too. There we go. Oh my god. That just looks ridiculous. Oh my, what am I doing with my life? Okay. This is gonna be stupid. Now I need my, oh, there it is. My 8-shot rocket system, that's the one I want. Oh wait, no, let's go with the 5-shot, because I'm not gonna fire all of them. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm gonna fire all of them, but I'm not gonna fire them in the sequence that they're currently set up as. Okay, so I'll stick this under there. Okay, like so. We're gonna put that to a button. You know what? Let's get rid of this chair and put in a. We'll put in an actual pilot seat because I want a space bar. I need a space bar. I need the toggle. Logic. I don't need battery power. Oh my god, I don't need battery power to fire those off. Shit. This is about to get really fucked up. Okay. Okay. Our data, our spacebar, which is our trigger, we're gonna have go into here. We're gonna set trigger 1. Where's trigger 1? Trigger 1. We'll have these guys fire down here. We'll start with those. Trigger 2. We will engage these top guys. So once the bottom is burned, we'll burn those. Trigger 3. Once those two are burned, we'll fire up these guys. Actually, no. Fire up these two center guys. And once those guys are burned, we'll get really fucked up. We'll fire these guys. So it's gonna go 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And hold on to your butts. That's basically how she's gonna go. And I gotta remember to turn off the brake, so I'm not fighting along. This is gonna be fucked up. Oh god, here we go. Are we ready for this? Brakes off. What are we doing? We're doing 110, 112. Oh, we're getting up there. Yee! 118. Oh, they're out. Next. Oh, we're past the 118. 130. This may be my fastest slip, but I know it's going to make it to the Arctic. 131. We're holding at 131 on this one. End of the corner. Next. Shit. We're at 173. Fucking hell. Yeah. 173 on those guys. What the next one's all 4. Shit. Here we go. 214, 217, 18. Feel like we're entering warp speed here going through these friggin' tunnels. Holy shit. And we're gonna be out of juice here in a second though. Yep, there it goes. We're done, we're out of juice. So she's gonna slow down pretty quick here. Look at it slow down. Brakes are off. No brakes. Even with no brakes, look at how fast it's slowing down. So where did we make it to? We made it to... We didn't even make it a third of the way. Look at that. We didn't even get close. That was hilarious though. Okay. Now we're gonna see how fast it can go. We're gonna see how fast it can go. So you ready for this shit? Brakes off. Okay. I'm gonna slap the space bar as fast as I frickin' can to get them all lit. 268! Oh, shit! Look at the friggin' trail! We have shut down. Holy crap. That's when you need to get the hell out. When you really need to get the hell out. Wow. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. I think we almost made it to the same spot that we were at. Maybe? So did all of the wait, did I think we made it to the same spot that we made it to when we were doing them one at a time. That's interesting. But we're not done with this shit yet. We're not done with this by a long shot. We're nowhere near done. Okay, selection grid. I want to grab from here, right? Okay, here. Oh, that did not grab all the engines. There. Okay, got all the engines? Perfect. Now, we're gonna we're gonna move that back here. Please tell me that you know what I'm doing. Because I know what I'm doing. I hope you do too. If you don't know me very well. Alright, so we're now going to... Oh, I see what I did there. Okay. We're gonna clear that out. We're gonna come forward again. Right there. And we are going to resize. Grab as much as we can. That should be good. Alright. Copy. Paste. Paste. And paste. Nope. Shit, that didn't work. Well, we'll have to fix that. Clear content. Resize. Cut. Move in one. Paste. Alright. Time to merge. Merge that with that, that with that, that with that. That with that. now we're just ridiculous. Okay. Now I want to take my selection grid again, because gravity defiance and everything is great, but it hurts my eyes. So I gotta fix it. Sorry. Just uno momento, por favor. Okay, so we're gonna cut this from there, or we're just gonna move it back to that's probably good there. Paste. That's enough to make my sense of reality at least semi able to process what I'm looking at. Oh God. All right, hold on to your butts. We're going wherever we're going. We're going to orbit sideways. Okay. Brakes off. Now, should I try to engage them slowly, or should I just hammer? Let's start with the hammer and see where we get, and then do it slowly next time. Okay, we'll do two runs. We'll do one hammering them all at once, and then we'll see where that gets us. And then we'll do one just taking our time, two here, and then that. And we'll do each stage. So here we go. This is the hammer. Motherfucker. Okay, so we're only moving at 206. We have more fuel, but we're much heavier. So we're only moving at 206. So the question is, are we going to get further than we were? Oh, jeez. Wow. Woo! Are we going to get further than we did before? Look at the freaking smoke trail. I think we're getting further. Can't even tell those outside ones are burning. They're just, they're like, you can see little lights. That's all you see of them. Uh-oh, we lost our tops. Oh, there they go. They're all down. Watch our speed drop. It's gonna drop like a rocket. Drop like a rocket? Yeah. So where did we make it to? We made it to... It's right before the big... Kind of before the big curl out. Alright. Now let's see if we were to smack them in sequence. Let's see if that changes anything. I don't know if it will. Because I think we're dealing with the thrust to weight ratio. It's gonna be equal no matter how we burn them. I think. Because this is not going to get us nearly as fast. It's going to be like a slow acceleration. I mean, it's going to burn for the same amount of time, but it's not going to get us up to the same speed. Because I think our thrust is basically our thrust. I think it's going to get us to the same location. Is this one gonna cut it? There we go. Fire these ones up. So I mean, those bottom ones died long before we reached the location where they died last time. So I don't know. We may find out something interesting here about thrust to weight. Staging does not necessarily equal getting further. So firing them all at once is pretty much the same as staging them. I think that's what we might discover here. I don't know for sure though. Now we're on to our first big ones. They're getting us to 132. Where are we on our map? Well, I don't know. They might get us farther staging. It looks like they're going to. It looks like they're going to get us farther. Yeah, we're going to be into the corner. So the staging is actually getting us further. Okay. Okay. It's still definitely not going to get us to the Arctic, but it is getting us further. So that's something. Then our last set. This is going to get us up to 166. 167. The corners kill you though. We're definitely still not getting to the Arctic. But we got a lot closer than we did firing them all at once. Cut out about any second now. I'm pretty sure their fuel's about spent. dead. Really? Ah, there they go. That was a little off. And now we slow down. But where did we make it to? And not even halfway. Not even halfway. I consider the Arctic as the first Arctic island right here. I consider that's where the Arctic is. A lot of people say you're not at the Arctic till you're up here. I say as soon as you see icebergs, you're at the Arctic. So we made it not even halfway there. Not even halfway. Halfway would have been, you know, somewhere around here-ish, probably. So we didn't make it halfway. Actually, halfway would probably be right about here. So we did not make it halfway, unfortunately. But, you know, it was a good attempt. It was a good, yeah, halfway would be somewhere around here-ish. So, good attempt. Did not make it. That's fine. I wasn't ever expecting us to make it. This is just ridiculous, though. This is absolutely ridiculous. It's still rolling. It hasn't stopped yet, which is funny because it's sure as frig slowed down pretty quick. But right at the end there, she just decided she's going to keep rolling. That's fun. Anyway, so that's going to do it for this episode of Trains. We got our nuclear train running and not too bad. Doing not too bad. But had a little fun there at the end. So I guess there's not much more to say than that. Yeah. I still got my remote control trains. These guys still run on the glitch generator too. I don't know that I'm ever gonna change that because they're too small really for anything else. But they do help a lot with you know, taking giant loads. They're basically my shunt cars to aid me in getting large loads around the map. But yeah, they're neat little guys. Anyway, I'm not getting into that. So thanks for everybody for watching. This is Jodian. I'm signing off. I'll see you next time. Take care and bye-bye.